Okay, everybody, welcome back to Ending the Stigma, a path to recovery. I am Fred Carroll, one of your hosts, and the other host is Scott H. Silverman, crisis coach, family navigator, author of The Opioid Epidemic, still available on Amazon. And we're going to talk about all kinds of things today, from right from Afghanistan all the way down to addictions. We're just going to chit chat. So if you're available and you got a question, you can type it in the comments. Um, we'll answer it. We'll talk about anything you really want to talk about. So, Scott, how are you?
Well, Fred, I'm good. I just sharing with you before we started. It's been kind of a strange week. I've been running around, and I've had to tell myself it's okay not to do everything today, which is, for somebody who suffers from a compulsive, obsessive, addictive personality, just setting boundaries is kind of difficult. And then I went to my home group, and I made a commitment to myself because I was really irritated. Somebody called me out on my profanity. And not in a good way, meaning they just said, is it really necessary? And, in my mind, it's like, how dare you question me? So I thought about it, and I went back to my home group yesterday after pouting for a week, and I shared I only dropped the F-bomb once, which got me some thumbs up. So I call that personal growth. So it's been my personal growth. Try not to stress too much, set some boundaries, and I got a new bike, and it's in the garage waiting to be put together.
Well, good. That's it is hard to get all your things done that you need to get done, and you just never will be finished. That's the problem. Every week is a restart,
Right.
To the thing. So I think as we get older, we do realize that you need your me time, and the problem usually gets solved quicker, or when you go back to the thing you were supposed to be doing, when you got a clear head, you could just take care of it. I do that with writing a lot. My writing suffers greatly due to my procrastination is one thing. I'm a huge I could write very quickly, but it also causes me not to write as often as I should be. And I procrastinate when I got the deadline. When I see that deadline ticking, I hammer it out and I'm done. And I wish I could be one of them people that just gets it done and puts it away. But no, I got to bring it right to the end, right to the finish line. It's a horrible feeling sometimes.
Yeah. By the way, I never got that memo about when you get older, you cannot do as much as you used to do. It's kind of like I hit a wall this week, which is interesting. And I'm accepting it. It just, you got 20 things to do. You start with the ugly ones, and hopefully by 2:00, you've knocked down half of it. And, I don't mind going till 7, 8, 9 at night to get stuff done, but some things require talking to others. So I kind of roll it over, and my capacity, it feels like, is the same, but my ability to get it done is a little different. So that's got to be okay, because there's nothing. I mean, look, anything earth shattering or life changing, I get to and knock it out because of what I do. But sometimes there's goofy things like, call Amazon to straighten out a mess. But I got it done today. It's funny, by the way. Speaking of that, for people that don't know this, I messed something up on a TV, and I was trying to put my Amazon Prime back on, and you get the little code and you type it in. And I did it on my laptop because my phone doesn't do it as quickly as it should. It gives me a phone number. So a chat pops up. I'm talking to this person. They want my name. Okay. That's everywhere. They want my phone number. I give it out all the time. And then they want my email, which is everywhere. And then they call me and they go, well, we're going to need more information to update your file, and it's only going to cost. I'm like, what? Hang on one second. Let me get the U.S. attorney on the phone, because I'm unsure about what you're asking. And when you click on the link, it was like Amazon My TV or something.com, and it takes you to this site. They've evidently got it SEO'd up to a point where they're the first click, and you think you're talking to Amazon, except for the 300 people in the background. That was kind of a giveaway. So I said to the guy, I said, I'm going to need to put you on hold for about 3 or 4 weeks. Would you mind holding? And then he hung up.
Yeah.
Anyway, so be careful out there. It's amazing. I haven't come across something like that in a long time, and I'm sure I'm going to send the screenshot to Amazon later, but it was just kind of weird, but I caught them, and they didn't want to stay on hold for 3 weeks. So I could go get.
It is that's part of the problem. And getting back to the other thing with So one of the things I wish I could change about myself, and I think it fits into our podcast here, is asking for help. You know, how we always talk about how hard it is to ask for help and stuff. Mine's in a different form. It's more of a control freak from my podcasts, from my writing, from these anthologies I'm releasing. I don't delegate other things to other people. I like to have full control of it
Right.
and know what's going on and stuff. But then sometimes I'm just sitting there in bed going, boy, I should just let them do this. Yeah, let them share this. And then I'm thinking, yeah, but what if they do it wrong? You know, it's part of my mental flaw, I guess.
Surrender is a very difficult thing to do, and ego is a big part of, I think, a lot of that, and I like the saying, edging God out. That's what ego, can mean to people.
Yeah, it's definitely it's a flaw. It's built into me. And I think it could come down to, I mean, if we wanted to put me on the couch and lay me down and dig
Yeah.
deep into my past, I think
that just sounds scary.
Yeah, it does.
Let's don't even, first of all, knowing you'd have a couch with some big fur blanket you'd get lost in.
Well, I'm saying, what if it's, I got to assume that there's your life, how you're raised and stuff plays a role in how you end up acting or what you do. And quite honestly,
I'm gonna put you on mute for a second. I got to grab this. As my wife.
Go ahead. I'll keep talking and seeing what's going on. But what I was saying was, it's nice that, when I was younger, I didn't feel like I had a lot of people that were there to help me necessarily. So I gave up on them and I end up doing it myself. And I think you end up doing that later in life. And it's horrible, horrible, horrible. It's great that we could watch Scott on the phone though. At least he always says how old he is, but he knows how to use a cell phone. And that's a plus.
Well, that was my wife, and she knows I do this podcast every week but we're all getting older. She wants me to verify her flight for tomorrow. So, cause she's leaving for a couple of days. So for those of you who want to talk to some old lonely man, 619-993-2738. Let's see if that gets somebody motivated, for God's sakes. Anyway, I don't know where you were. I just jumped back in and interrupted you. So what were you saying, Fred? Oh, back on the couch. You're going to get a new couch?
Well, I told what I continued while you were on the phone, but I was saying how as a child, I didn't feel like I had a lot of people that had my back and solved problems for me. They created some.
Yeah.
And I felt like I had to do it myself. And I think even later on in life, when I got custody of my children, for instance, I had to do it myself. Nobody had my back there, and I just kept going. And I think eventually you just think you're alone with it and you got to solve it.
Let me ask you, Fred, sorry to interrupt before I forget. What out of 10 people, how many do you think had the same experience you did growing up, not believing someone didn't have their back? What would your guess be?
I mean, I think considering the times it was, I would say 25% of the people I knew probably dealt with the same, divorce rate wasn't as high. A lot of people had two people, at least, well, I won't say the divorce rate wasn't as high, but they tended to be married, a second marriage, maybe a step parent involved and stuff like that, which I always had. But but you never knew it when you're going through it.
That's my point. So when you reflect back, like you just did, and shared about not feeling like someone had your back, my guess would be it's north of 70%. Simply because when you think about, and you say your time, I was born in 1954. So, that's many, many years ago. I think probably families seem like they were more intact. But when you talk to people, I talk to my contemporaries, there's some stuff that went on back in those days, different than, I'm not talking about high levels of extremities, but just, families both working, dad had 3 jobs, mom was trying to take care of stuff, and her mom had to work, their parental connectivity was kind of diminished. I mean, that's what I grew up with. My folks both worked. So, did I feel abandoned? Some days, but I don't blame my parents, and I know a lot of people blame their parents, and probably because of a lot of the work that I've done around it, that I know it wasn't their fault. They were trying to take care of us, and when people do that, but they don't actually get a chance to take care of the ones they love, it part of the outcome could be something that happens in life, and then you realize, well, gee, that's because I didn't have the tools, or the tools were used to hit me over the head, or something like that. Anyway,
And a lot of it, I often want, with my mother being passed on, now that I'm a little older than, I was 40 when she died, but I didn't have the time or didn't think it was almost over. You don't know when the time is. So that's probably a good lesson is if you got a question, ask it now. But I often wondered if I could sit down with her today and just ask her, why didn't you step in during this certain moment? You knew it was going on. What was she possibly being abused in the same, at the same time? I don't know. These are all questions that I ponder now, which is too late to answer, and there's a lot of confliction too. Sometimes
Right.
the story I tell doesn't match up with what my sisters remember. They're like, and I don't feel like I'm making it up or lying, but I am a storyteller by nature. So sometimes I'm to the point I'm like, wait, did that happen or am I creating it? I don't know where my own mentality meets reality, at times.
Wait, you don't know where your own mentality meets reality?
Well,
That's a good one. I'm not even sure I know what that means.
yeah, it's a unique one, but I just,
Mentality. I like it though.
yeah.
That'd be a great name for a book, where mentality meets reality, or when reality meets mentality, or mentality meets reality. I like that. It's .com.
Yeah.
That'd make
It,
a great, interesting story, because I
but
think everyone would have one.
so moving on to the stuff going on in the world, we don't talk politics very often and we don't talk necessarily world problems, but I was pondering a few things when watching all this Afghanistan stuff going down, and we're not going to discuss who's right, who's wrong, all that stuff. Neither me, you, nor I have the power nor the voice to change any of that. But what I was wondering was the addiction of countries like Afghanistan, and I figured you might have information on this. I was wondering about the depression and suicide rates and stuff like that of other countries like Afghanistan, because I look at it on the news, and quite honestly, I couldn't be happier that I was born in America and get to live here, because that just looks, it doesn't look like there's much happiness to be found. Where do you find your happy when you're in a nation like that? So what do you know about it?
Well, I not much. I mean, I traveled in '76 for 6 months. I was in Greece, and I was in Israel, and I was in Turkey for a while. And one of the things that I experienced, which was, I thought, really kind of cool, was there's a lot of family. There's a lot of cultural family, and there's a lot of culture where, you've got the elders, the moms and the dads, the grandparents live with the moms and the dads and the kids, and then the kids marry and they're still living at home, and their kids, so the great grandkids. So, I think that the issues that people have globally are different than we have, and we may have more issues because we have more options. I don't know. And besides, to your point about people that are self-medicating in different parts of the world, first of all, it's hard if you don't have money. Second of all, people don't. You can always find drugs. There's always drugs somewhere, but in order to have access to it, you got to have money, you got to have influence, and there's got to be an infrastructure somewhere to distribute it. And I think a lot of countries who have suffer a lot with poverty, or don't have options, or they're going to primarily put their money, to food and to shelter, and taking care of each other when you're under difficult conditions. I mean, I can remember going to a development town in the southern part of Israel. I believe it was a Moroccan Indian development town, and the average family had 11 or 12 or 13 children, which was just phenomenal. And one of the things that I got upset about when I was there is I saw that in the U.S. we raise a lot of money for Israel, and I remember growing up as a kid. You gotta support Israel. Okay, but then I realized a big chunk of the money that was raised was going to help supplement families, and it just seemed odd that so many families, and Israel is one of those places in the world where it didn't matter who you were, you could always come there.
Right. So it is interesting though. Like, does it ever come to a point where, so say a woman that's from Afghanistan lived there her whole life, I doubt they travel much, like they never leave their country.
No.
So is it just, is she not depressed because she doesn't know any different? Is that just life? It's like living on an island, or, does she just not have any? Is it because it's always been forbidden for her to have an education? It's always been forbidden for her to be anything more than a parent, a mother.
Well, again, the cultural pieces, but clearly the internet and the news has changed things. And one of the big issues and concerns right now is women are in big trouble because culturally they started to shift. They took different roles. They had leadership roles. They had work roles, career changes, education. And there's a lot of fear right now. I think not only internally for them, but the rest of the world that could all that switch could get flipped. Without other influencers there who can help protect them. So I think there's going to be unfortunately, some devastating fallout. They're already talking about. They went to people's home and they're killing people. So and that cultural part, yeah, it's shifted as well. And supposedly they're holding their breath right now, trying to let America do what it needs to do to get its people out, and hopefully it'll get the Americans out, all those who supported the troops and the translators and the teachers, and let them get here so they can at least be safe. So, Chris is just saying the income disparity. Sure. I mean, look, why do you think people want to be here? You can come here as a immigrant with nothing and you can develop opportunities. And I've seen a lot of people, we see it on the news, who built these huge businesses and they employed lots of people, and they're very grateful for the opportunity and they give back to the community in different ways. So, we are lucky in the U.S. As a democracy, and I wish we'd stop fighting at leadership level and find ways to get our stuff together so we can spend more time being a better resource globally.
See, in my mind, I look at it, I say, if the drug factories wanted to go somewhere, it looks like that would be a perfect hotspot for people searching to get out of their own head by using drugs and becoming addicted to things. But their religious values are ban alcohol, correct? Is it no alcohol at all in Afghanistan?
I'm not exact the tipping points for them, but I believe that drinking is something that's forbidden. But it is in where is it? Dubai, and there's people from all over in Dubai that that have money. They come here, and a lot of times they're just coming to party because they can't culturally. Their culture frowns on it and doesn't really accept it as abusive drinking, if you will, or self-medicating, if you will. So they have to be very careful if they are addicted, because there's consequences that are pretty severe if they get caught.
Yeah. The one thing I would say, and that I think we armed the wrong people when we were training them over there. Perhaps if we armed the children and the women, we wouldn't have had as much of a problem here, because they're the ones that need to protect themselves. I don't think they would have laid their weapons down, because the army that was there was all men, and I've never seen an army not fight back and drop their weapons so quickly. It just didn't, the numbers didn't make sense, but that gets into the political realm of things. And that's not what we're about. We're here to help people primarily here in the country we can work with, but we're welcome to help other people if we can. It's just a thought that came into my head, was whether addiction is such an issue in countries like that, especially, it was more geared actually towards the mental health.
Yeah.
that
Are
people,
there behavioral health issues? Sure, everywhere in the world there are, especially as people generationally get more educated and start to realize, the kind of oppression that they've been through and control they've been under, and then they look at us, the U.S. and the freedoms that we have, and then people get into entitlement, then they get into control, and other parts of the world. Wish God, if I could walk out my door and be okay, basically, and not be, a target for somebody. And look, we're all, in some ways, we're targets for somebody. That's part of the fear mongering and the discrimination that goes on in our, we have it here in the U.S. in a big way. But, compared to other countries, our safety factor is really, really high, in my opinion, and our freedom is really high. And technically, we get the option, if we rally effectively, to make changes with leadership. But, the way our party seem to be going, the parties, it's like nobody wants to agree on anything. And I think they want to, but the way we go about it seems to be so destructive.
yeah. Well, I did stumble across this website that I wanted to read a few things from, and it's geared towards depression and stuff. And it was just a kind of an interesting article. And I don't know if you'll agree with everything, but it's 6 things you should never say to someone that is depressed when they reveal they're not feeling well mentally and all that. And here's 6 things they say with the words they believe you should replace them with. So let me know what you think in this. The number one thing is telling somebody it's all in their head when they're depressed. And they say instead, you should say, if you're ready to chat, we can go through some stuff you're depressed about and break them down so they don't seem so scary. So, what do you think of that one?
That's great, because the stuff is in their head, but they're not making it up. They didn't manufacture it. They didn't create it. It kind of embryonically just grew there, and then when it's not processed, my saying, the pressure busts pipes, and that's exactly what it is. It's stuff that grows and goes, and if it's not being processed, it's going to manifest itself in more than likely a negative way. So I like that answer. It's a good one.
Yeah, the second one is you're not the only one with problems. And they say you should say, I'll give you the time you need, but know that I'm here if you want to vent.
Yep. No,
You know,
that's great. No,
yeah,
because you're not the only one with problems. Is it's a shame-based comment that just makes what the other person's feeling feel embarrassed or angry or upset that they're actually feeling it, so they feel bad. So that's just
right.
counter.
It actually says, this is one of the worst possible things you could say to someone because chances are that person's already feeling pretty crappy as is. By
Yep.
telling them that their illness is nothing compared to others only makes them feel more worthless. So the third thing is you need to exercise. That's a very common reply to people. And they say you should say nothing instead. Nothing. Do not respond with you need exercise because they say, as though it's scientifically proven that exercise can help your mood, sometimes it's impossible to even get out of bed when you're depressed, let alone get on a treadmill. So telling somebody to exercise is not a good solution to their problem.
Well, you know how I feel about exercise, so for me, saying nothing is not a problem.
Right. So the number 4 thing is be positive. Now it seems innocent and it's not none of these are horrible things you could say because we're all human. Listen, I probably 4 of these 6 things I probably are go to, and that's what led me to this. I basically Googled how to react when somebody tells you they're depressed. These are things I Google on my free time, and this is what I came up with. So the other one was be positive. They say that's a horrible thing to say to someone says because they're in a bad place right now. And all they're thinking when you say be positive is, wow, thanks for that. I had no idea. All I had to do was think I'm happy to be happy, and it doesn't work like that. They said the thing to say instead of be positive is, I care for you, would be a better answer to them. So the fifth thing is, I was sad when I did XYZ, but I got over it and you will too. Another comment, but that's how we talk to people. And I realize as I'm reading these how many times I've said that to people, like, oh, you'll get over it. Oh, you'll be fine. And that's so dismissive because really what I'm saying, and I know some of the moments, I'm saying, I don't have time to hear your problems. So you'll get over it because I got to move on with mine.
What's that saying? The only person that feels good about that comment is the person making the comment because
Right.
it doesn't help anybody else. And a part of the reason we say that is that we probably heard it from others. A and B, it kind of helps us insulate ourselves a little bit and kind of hide behind. If I can fix you, I can fix me.
Yeah. And they say instead of saying I'll get over it, say, I may not know what you're going through, but I will be by your side through it if all you want me to be, So number 6 is I'm sick of your whining, which is another common listen, especially when I'm dealing with my children
Mm-hmm.
and stuff. Sometimes you're so close to a person. That's why children seek outside assistant, like an uncle sometimes is a better person to talk to, or a friend's mother is better than you because we get so close to our children. We know them so intimately with the way they react to things, what their reactions are and stuff. I think it's easy for me to tell my daughter, will you just stop whining? And I realize now that's not great advice. It's not a great way to talk to her, but it's common. So they say instead you should say nothing and just give them a hug. Just give them a hug. You don't need to say, I'm sick of your whining. Just shut your mouth and hug them, which is probably a good answer for everything in my life. Shut your mouth and hug them.
Yep.
And
And
I'd
tell
probably,
them tell them you care. I mean, when you think about it, those three things, if we were offering those up to each other on a daily basis, imagine how the paradigm would shift. One of the things that I'd add a seventh that when uh, people talk about, I don't know if you've ever heard someone say, as I've heard many people, I'm hearing voices. And the experts say when they say that, when people say that, just ask them what they're saying, just to kind of maybe, calm it down a little bit. But, to be able to react to somebody outside of yourself when you know they need support and do it in a way that's very supportive, it is such a game changer. Not only for you personally by being able to help someone else, but also for someone else who's suffering or is in pain to be able to hear from somebody else that, it's going to be okay. But you don't say it's going to be okay. You just say, look, I care. I hear you. And I will continue to listen until you're done.
look, Chris is quoting you. If nobody's told you lately they love you, I love you.
Well, clearly he's not driving, so he had to think about that one. Thank you,
Yeah.
Chris.
But hey, before we end this, you want to hear I got 2 letters that I could read.
Well, wait, you're not going to play a video we can't hear? Come on. I
No,
always look forward.
I haven't had enough time off to figure that out yet. Why you got to bring up my problems? Why you got to dig up my old issues?
Don't
Now
worry. I care about you. I'm going to listen. Go ahead. Read your letters, brother.
okay, so here's the first one. Hello, Scott and Fred. My question is, one, what are those creepy heads behind Fred in all his videos? I think they're talking about these right here behind me. And two, where is it? And two, why is it so easy for both of you to discuss such personal flaws and experience? Love the show, Zola. So I'll start with the head. First of all, I got this thing's a glass head. I'm guessing this at one time was at a wig store or something. It's made of glass, and I found it at a tag sale. And I just love it. It's the it's the head I could talk to, and it has no response. It's great. I could really vent to it.
Well, you mean a great listener.
A great listener. And the other one, I don't know. My daughter is a hairstylist, and when she was in school, she had like 4 of these in the house. Where they would just, you know, I guess they do the hair on it and it grow. I don't know, but somehow they ended up in the trunk of my car. And it was one of the scariest experiences I ever dealt with, was opening the trunk of my car and seeing four heads just staring back at you. And I figured I'd just prop her up there and put some headphones on her. And I'm guaranteed to have at least two listeners every time I go live. That's the way I look at it.
Well, you can't exclude Chris.
You're right. Chris is always there. Chris might as well just come on the show already
Right.
and talk about what he does, because what Chris does is pretty amazing. And I don't know how good of a conversationalist he is, but by the amount of he types, I could tell he knows what he's talking about and he has a thought on things. So, Chris, why don't you just come on the show and
There
show
you
your beautiful face? So, what do you think of the other part? They want to know why it's so easy for me and you to talk about our issues and our flaws and stuff. How do you answer that?
Well, I can talk about just about anything anybody wants to talk about, and when I don't know anything about it, I'll just listen. I think we're motivated by a desire to chip away at some of the rocks that we can't move, and we know that we could probably go around them, but I think if we can chip away, we'll be an example for others. So that would be my response to that.
Yeah. Well, I would also like to say that from my point of view, it's not easy. There's nothing easy about me telling about my past or my flaws and stuff. Easy wouldn't be the word I would choose. I choose to talk about it because I want to let other people know that they're not alone, that they're not. And I have the forum. We have the forum to do it. So why not talk about it? I don't have any shame in it. There's no shame in it. None of the things that happened to me were necessarily my fault. It's different for possibly your flaws and stuff. You chose certain paths, but some of the things I talk about from being sexually abused and stuff, those aren't things that I had any role in. I was just a victim of them. So talking about them, there's no shame, but it's not easy. It's not like I want to sit here and I'd rather do my comedy show, quite honestly. My comedy show is a lot more therapeutic to me, but this is more rewarding. So that's the difference. There's more of a reward on me doing this and hopefully helping somebody legitimately, but there's more of a personal reward doing the comedy because I enjoy the fun of that. So let me do the second one. Dear Ending the Stigma. When I was a teen, I began drinking. That became cocaine, then pills, and then a cycle of daily repeats. Honestly, anything that altered my self being was taken. Today, although sober and drug free for 10 years, every single day I still suffer, whether it's a haunting past, a brief moment of weakness where I feel the desire to drink, or my memory loss. And I am only 40 years old, but I look much older. My teeth are ruined. My family life is better now, but can never be what it should have been. So, my reason for writing this letter is to help show that there is a long term effect to the abuse that I put my body through. So, that's what they were. I like the way he wrote the letter. He didn't write it. He's not telling people not to do things, but I think he's just trying to show that you pay a price. There's a price to pay for all those things. If you don't you got to get clean as soon as possible, is what I took from that.
So, man, what I've learned is waiting longer, things don't ever get better.
Right. It doesn't get better. Yeah. There's very few. Who was that guy from Rolling Stone that Hunter S. Thompson, who just went, you remember Johnny Depp played him in the movie, I don't know, Leaving Las Vegas or whatever it was. But there's very few people that, without dying of an overdose, just continue a long life of abuse, drug abuse and stuff. There are alcoholics that start at young and still live to be into their 80s and stuff. But for the most part, it's going to be the reason you die. And there's enough other reasons. There's a lot better reasons to do it. Hey, but by the way, did you happen to? I don't know if I talked to you about this. I don't think so. I think I was talking to Jennifer on the other show. Did you ever notice that ever since 1974 or 75, nobody has on your death certificate, there's no more dying of old age? Did you ever notice that? Like your grandparents, if they lived long enough, on their death certificate, it probably says died of old age, you know, and stuff. But now there's got to be a reason and stuff, whether it's cancer and stuff like that. But they're considering bringing it back now. And I think it's a good thing. I think once you hit, let's say, 75 years old, no matter what it is that ends your life, it should be on your death certificate that you died of old age. What do you think?
Well, if that's going to be your end the show thought, I'd like to get back to you on it. Who thinks of this stuff?
Listen, my mind goes into so many different areas of things that This is what I do as a writer. First of all, as a fiction writer, I always am creating scenarios, because the whole thing about being a fiction writer is how do you turn a bank robbery into a single parent? How do you mold those two worlds together? And it's building those. So I think of all these scenarios, but the death certificate thing always miffed me. And it's another thing that goes back to my sisters disagreeing with me with proof. Like my birth certificate, for instance. On my birth certificate, it says, how many children of the previous mother are born alive? Says 1. That's my older sister. It says, how many children of the previous mother are born dead? It says 1. Okay. Which means there was a child between me and my sister. Okay. Somewhere there was within that 3-year gap. Well, my mother denies it. My father, who's still alive, denies it, but it's on my birth certificate. My sisters say, well, mommy would have said something about it. I said, really? You think so? Would she talk about that? And why would it be on my birth certificate? They pass it off as a mistake. Do you think that's possible, that somebody would put a 1 next to that and make a mistake like that?
You talking to me?
Yeah. What do you think?
I can't tell you honestly, I've ever thought about it. And, now I see why you need a couch.
Yeah. Well, listen, I could be in therapy every day without a problem. And he wouldn't even have to talk. He wouldn't even have to talk, Scott.
From what little I know, Fred, though, eventually what they'd want to do is they'd want to put you somewhere to make you a test project and put you in front of a group that each day would spend 3 or 4 hours trying to figure out, how do you connect the dots here? By the way, speaking of connecting the dots, I just noticed that your name is spelled in all caps.
Yeah. Is that a problem?
I'm looking at mine. It's not.
Right. Well, you typed yours in. I typed mine in.
Ah.
You typed it in.
What do you think? What do you think about that, Fred?
I think that we should probably end the show very soon.
There you go, brother.
The reason I put it in.
Run from the studio, head to the kitchen, go down to the bathroom.
So I used to change, I could change the way it looks on the screen, those things. So
no, I was being funny. It just looks different.
I used to have that. But I also sometimes am just author Fred Carroll sometimes. It depends what I feel like typing. But I could change it. I could change it to any. Next week, I might be Scott Silverman. You can't stop me from calling myself Scott Silverman.
Nope. And you're more than welcome to my world. I'll give you the keys. You can have everything. My FICA scores, my bank account. You got it all, brother. Hey, listen, speaking of next week, do you think we can get 1 or 2 of those letter writers? Maybe they're listening to call in or to.
Well, it definitely would be nice
to join us.
Whether to call in, even to be on the show and just come on. Well,
since we know how the call-ins work, so I misspoke. See if they'll be on the show.
Yeah, well, I could get the call-ins. The problem is people aren't calling, and it's.
No, I meant the people that wrote the letter. See if they're interested in joining us. You're right. It's more proper to have them on the show.
I wouldn't mind even. testing a option where I just willy-nilly throw the link out and they could just, because I could have up to 10 people in the waiting room, at one time, where we could bring them up and
Let's do it.
they can come on. It's just getting the people to commit to it and come on. But
Well,
maybe you
I'm
work
sure.
on getting Chris.
All right.
And I'll work on getting other people, but that's going to be it for the end of the show, Scott. We did a good 40 minutes. This is Ending the Stigma, part of Venom Podcast Studios. You can find us on Apple and Spotify and all the other ones. Just go to venomstudios.com. You can find it there, all the links to it. That's VENOMSTUDIOZ. Don't forget the Z. You could call Scott Silverman. What is Scott Silverman's number? It is, go ahead, say it, Scott.
619-993-2738. Call or text me anytime.
Anytime, because, and the reason you do that, explain to people why you give your number.
Because if you're in the business of helping people and you're not able to have people reach you, how can you help them? So call me. You'll always get a call back within 12 to 24 hours. And at a minimum, a text to say, let's talk the day after tomorrow, unless I'm out of town, which is not going to happen for, I don't know, quite a while with COVID. I'm not even going to breakfast anymore.
Yeah, you can't tell anymore. And you could also visit Scott's website at yourcrisiscoach.com. I want to thank you, Scott, for joining us today.
Thank you, Fred.
And thank Chris for being as active as he usually is. And that's going to be it. We'll be on sometime next week. Well, you just never know when we're going to pop up, but it's all based on my schedule for some reason, because I work odd hours and
that's right.
My bills
I can't leave the house, so I'm the flexible one.
And my bills just keep coming. They won't stop.
They will
keep coming. They'll stop when I stop. That's the problem. And I just hand them down. But that's it for Ending the Stigma. Thanks everybody out there. Please share it. Please join Ending the Stigma on YouTube. Subscribe and go to Facebook. Type in Ending the Stigma. Join the group page. And that's it. So I will see you soon, my friend. And have a great day, everyone. Great week, and stay sober.
See you later.
And the